All right, this is my Hero LFG channel, Hero Looking for Group, mostly related to technology, and I want to talk about how I'm using artificial intelligence. And so I'm a software engineer, site reliability engineer, platform engineer. I've been using artificial intelligence since about 2023. Began using it in kind of a co-pilot where I get the artificial intelligence to help me, and then I can kind of copy and paste, and the tooling has gotten better. VS Code actually created something called Copilot. Around 2025, March 2025, we have this release of Claude that was really good. I started using Cursor, and then I quickly put it in agent mode. And so that's kind of the context. And so I'm going to go through kind of a write-up, some feedback. So I use Cursor daily, and I rarely edit artifacts directly. I ask the agent to do the work, and I focus on constraints, judgment, and verifying quality. That's the context. So the use cases, what I have AI dev tools for. So I write production code. The agent will draft it, and I verify it. I read production code to answer questions in large code bases. I do debugging and bug fixing. I create tests. I add observability tooling. I create docs and specifications, and then I also execute. One thing that's missing here that I could add is, I had it in my head and then I lost it. So within each of these, so for like debugging, there's things I can do, like how do I debug and how do I test, how do I add observability, how do I create docs, how do I execute, and I list these out as well. You know, I have to load the context, and there's a skill in being able to load context, and I can point Cursor towards documentation or code bases, existing source code. I can create rules for Cursor to follow, and then I might get it to run certain tools to look at databases or to look at different repos and GitHub. I can get it to use kubectl to look at Kubernetes resources if I have the right permissions. I don't want to give Cursor keys to be able to modify production databases and production clusters, but if it has read access, I can do that if we have the right contracts in place for privacy protection and leaking data. Otherwise, it's not a good idea if you don't want those third parties getting access to your information. And so I actually use Cursor. I use Cursor for many things, but I'll keep going. I create tests. I like to create these end-to-end tests, which help me to verify that my changes or the agent's changes or other people's changes or their agent's changes that they actually work and they don't break things. So I like to create basically black box testing scripts, and there's a skill in doing that. I also can generate unit tests, and I can validate things like database schema migrations. I like to also create observability layers because sometimes I'm handed code that's really complex. It's hard to read, and so and sometimes the agents create code that's complex, and so I can create observability layers to help me see inside of what the code is actually doing. I can begin tracing all the code paths. I can begin looking at the values, and so that's observability tooling layer is something that I add. And I just remembered, I create automation. I like to create automation. That's a use case as well. Automation. So docs and specs. Part of my process of using Cursor includes creating a plan. So if I'm debugging, I can create a test plan. If I'm trying to review the code created by an agent or other people, I can create basically that end-to-end test, it can end up looking like a test plan. I can read it. If I'm creating an observability tool or an automation, I create a test plan. But if the customer wants something and I work on a team, I can actually share that plan with others so that other automations, AI backed or humans, can review the plan. We can work as a team more effectively when we share our plans. And so that's some of the docs that I create. I can also review the costs. Like some of these solutions with AI will have more or less cost depending on kind of how much thinking, how much intelligence we need as a part of the solution. And so I can use Cursor to help generate documentation. I like to then share the technical plan and the cost analysis into the place where the team keeps track of those things. There's a lot of different tools available. Different teams use different things. And then, there's execution. So I can ask Cursor to propose commands to run, let it run commands when safe environments. But for sensitive work, I can review the commands, I can run them, and I can even copy and paste the feedback back into Cursor and enter into a loop where I'm the monkey in the middle. I'm the meat bag. So this works. A lot of times I'll discover tools and tech that I didn't know about, and I can learn how to use these in ways I couldn't before. I have a skill in being able to have suspicion and being skeptical so that I can review all the creations, the artifacts coming out of other agents or other people's work. And so I use that skill to move quickly using artificial intelligence, specifically Cursor. So what's working? Speed. So an agent like Cursor reads and writes faster than I can, and I can run it in parallel while I focus elsewhere. So for example, I could kick off something to do some work. And then as we have better tools and rules and scaffolding, I might be able to kick off something that has a certain amount of risk, and I can give it a certain amount of attention. If it's high risk, I need to pay attention to it. If it's low risk, I can take my eyes off. It reminds me of a car I just bought. I bought a Chevrolet Traverse that has Super Cruise, and I've learned where I can trust the automated driving more or less, depending on the situation. And it's similar when I'm allowing Cursor agents to do work for me. How much do I need to keep my eyes on that thing? It depends on the situation. So speed is working. Typical outcome, I either finish much faster or finish a little faster, but with many improvements with regard to testing, observability, quality, automation. So with quality, there's a verification first workflow. Most of my time goes to reviewing and testing rather than typing. Better test and better observability become the default because they're required to validate a black box quickly. Better reliability and reduced toil when the system is observable and testable. Architecture. I've observed simpler architectures emerge because AI and humans work better when the system is understandable. A useful signal is if Cursor struggles to understand and build it, humans likely will too. And my learning is that I can discover and adopt new tech tools faster than I could pre-AI. So what's not working? What slows me down? So the thing that's not working is reliability, consistency. So sometimes a model can degrade. This has happened with Claude. So, and then when a model degrades, I have to switch to another model. I've experienced this, and in my doc, I end up linking to the outage over at Anthropic. You need the skill to recognize if a model degrades and to switch models and tools. Similarly, I've seen an upgrade to Cursor have a bug, and it's nice to be able to downgrade to the previous version. So that's a skill you need, and that's something to look out for. Agents can behave inconsistently in legacy code bases without the right rules, context loading, scaffolding. Sometimes the existing structure needs to be redone. So a lot of times software engineers had a choice in the old days pre-AI, and they could organize their code by component or organize their code by like behavior or feature. I always was a fan of feature. My brain just worked better that way. But it turns out the AI-backed coding works better when you organize by feature as well. It doesn't work as well when you do component-based organization. And so all those people who were doing that, and I disagreed with them back then, now I have a reason for them not to do that anymore. But I found that it's more difficult to use the coding agents when people design their software, they architect their software for a pre-AI world. So what's not working is process tooling. So pre-AI automation, there are some lint rules. For example, like indentations. I've seen Cursor not indent things properly, which matters with a language like Python, but does not matter in a language like PHP. And so then, because it doesn't matter, it will have some strange indentation that's inconsistent. The linter will catch it, so then you have to have the automation, or you have to do it manually. So that's been one thing I've come across. Sometimes tests enforce the outdated design decisions of like component-based organization, which my claim is that in the AI world, it's demonstrably incorrect to do component-based code organization. We should be doing feature-based code organization. And so then I'm having to add some ignores for the linter rules, or ignores for the testing, and then we end up with code that's inconsistent. Or I have to go back and clean it up to make it look like the way that other people think it ought to look, who are accustomed to doing things for a pre-AI era. So there can be formatting debt. Even in this doc I created, I had to go back and like try to tab everything together so it's easily human readable. So there could be tooling I could build with the help of Cursor to help format things for human readability. Or I can do it manually, and you have to make that assessment at some point whether you should build the tool and add the automation, or just do it manually. So people and process friction. So a tone mismatch. So my agent, I've configured my agent to review with a bluntness. I don't want it to try and be nice. I want it to be honest. I value honesty over politeness. But if I just copy and paste that to others, they might not be ready, and I've seen them get offended, and I had to apologize. So I have to be careful with that. Change resistance. AI native workflows conflict with well-established habits like the linting norms and early abstraction. So, when do we abstract? When do we add automation is always a question. It's a bit subjective, but if you do it too quickly, this can cause issues, because those abstractions lead to code that is less understandable, less readable. Let's see. There's a hard boundary. So I do not want Cursor using my credentials and keys to modify production environments like kubectl, MySQL, AWS CLI, and Google Cloud. If I were in Azure, similarly. You have to be careful with the keys you give the agent so that it isn't doing things that you end up regretting. So in comparison of Cursor versus Copilot versus regular editors, the baseline is a regular editor without AI, and then GitHub Copilot gave me at least a 1.25x. And then Cursor gave me at least a 3x. There was moments where I bumped into things I had to learn, or like for example, a model degradation, but usually it's around 3x, at least. And then there's practical difference. Copilot helps with local completion. Cursor's agent helps with whole task execution, reading, planning, changing multiple files, tests, and verification, scaffolding. The time savings, typical pace, I get to 3x my pre-AI baseline, and I can 3x a comparable engineer who does not use AI-assisted tools, and I can 2x someone using Copilot. If they're using Copilot effectively, I think I can 2x their productivity. And then sometimes when the team finds an AI-first design, the improvement can be 10x or 100x. And when I say AI-first there, I'd like to say code generation first, because even pre-AI era, I came across patterns where we could do code generation first and just get 10x, 100x type improvements. System thinkers tend to be able to do this. So while the results vary across people, systems thinking drives gains. Treat the system as a black box and invest in observability plus end-to-end tests instead of reading every line. People who feel they must review every line in detail tend to move more slowly. Big gains come from choosing the simplest workable solution. Avoid unnecessary complexity, avoid early abstraction, follow YAGNI. YAGNI is you aren't going to need it. It basically means sometimes people want to build things that nobody's going to need. Some best practices need reinterpretation with AI. Dry, don't repeat yourself. That previous best practice in pre-AI era can be counterproductive when AI can safely generate boilerplate. Duplication can keep things uncoupled and easy to change. AI first often aligns with accessibility first. I'm going to bump back up to dry. Minimal dry. I mean, we shouldn't avoid it, but we should just don't try to do it too much. Minimal abstractions. And now I'll move back. AI first often aligns with accessibility first. Clear semantics, label structures, which helps both minority users who need screen readers and AI agents. It also turns out that if you can understand code with your eyes closed, it means it's just more understandable. But there are things like formatting, like AI doesn't care about indentations, just like a blind person doesn't. So, models, what I use. So I default to Claude non-max mode for budget constraints. I wish I didn't have those budget constraints, but we still do. I sometimes switch to an OpenAI model for front-end work or when testing the latest from another provider. I'm currently testing OpenAI GPT 5.2 while drafting the document that I'm reading from. Success story learning. So there, I did do a task. It was estimated by the team to take 15 days, and I completed it in 3 days. It was faster because the agent helped me read the existing code patterns and the docs quickly, then generate the code. I spent most of my time testing and reviewing. Team norms, I think, will matter over time. So start over from scratch is a valid tool. If an initial design is wrong, throw it away and rebuild cleanly. For major subsystems, it can be worth assigning strong builders plus agents to rebuild rather than patching indefinitely. Use verification as the control surface. Make end-to-end tests and observability cheap to add, run, and review. And define safety boundaries. Prefer sandboxes, avoid agent access to production credentials. And then I have references, which is one of the things I ask for. So let me know if you found that useful. If you are using a keyboard, you should consider using a tool like Cursor in agent mode and learning how to do it, because you're just going to be able to produce more and better results than all those people who choose not to use these tools. So let me know what you think. Have a good one. Bye-bye.